Hey everybody, welcome to Westward Books YouTube page. I'm Maddie Weston, and I'm the author for Westward Books. So today I'm going to read from a section at the very back of the Roller Kids First Flight that's titled How the Story Came to Be. And it tells the story of how my nephew, when he was about 7 or 8, came up with these characters and how he convinced me to turn it into a book. It was a super fun process to do with him, and it's kind of a cool thing that he can come up with things when he's 7 years old and one day he can hold it in his hand as a book. I hope it shows kids that anything they dream can become real. Okay, here we go. How this book came to be. When my nephew, Peyton, was around 7 years old, he told me that he had characters he had made up about me and him as superheroes. He was always telling stories about superheroes from comic books and TV shows, as well as writing stories down on paper for me. I have a whole folder full of the stories he wrote when he was little. But these superheroes were different because they were him and me. I had rocket blades and he had a magical roller coaster, and we kept saving the town and the world from bad guys. After a little while of telling these stories, when he was about 8 years old, he asked if he could change the characters so I wasn't his aunt, but his big sister instead. Which, sorry to embarrass you, Peyton, just about melted my heart into a puddle. I found that to be so sweet. And then one day, at about 10 years old, he asked the big question, could we turn these characters into a book? And I said, yes. But first, he had to change them from the story of him and me. He had to make them original characters. He wanted their names to be Harley and Quinn, but someone had already used those names together for something else, so we looked up what Harley meant and found another name that meant roughly the same thing, Bentley. Their superhero names had always been Roller Boy and Roller Girl, but again, someone had used one of those names for something, and I wasn't sure we should use it too. So we brainstormed some new name ideas and ended up with Coaster Kid and Rocket Ruby. Then I asked him what their living situation was. He wanted them to be in foster care with someone they trusted, but not quite enough to share their secret identities with just yet. So he came up with the character of Miss Rose. Then TJ, then Lomas, all the characters, except Mr. Hayden, he's all mine. After that, he came up with the town of Juniorville, and then he explained exactly how their powers worked. He explained what their costumes looked like. Due to some art issues, we did make a few changes there. And of course, he came up with who they would be battling. I even have a picture saved away that he drew me as a reference for what the ships looked like. I was in the middle of writing a different book when he asked me to do all this, so I told him he'd have to wait a bit. It took me longer to finish that book than I expected. There's so much more to writing a book than just the writing part. And then COVID hit, and I spent a year and a half in lockdown doing virtual playdates with all the kids and some of the adults in my life every single day, trying to keep everyone from boredom and isolation. And then, finally, I got back to it. Just like my first book, it took longer than expected. So long, in fact, that Peyton is 17 years old and in his last year of high school as I write this. But the Roller Kids are still all his. And this story belongs to both of us. It started out with a little kid telling me stories of wild superhero adventures we could go on together if we both had the ability to fly through the sky. And it ended 10 years later with this book. So tell your stories, write them down, save them, keep them. You might not have an aunt who will turn it into a book for you, but you never know what could happen. Maybe one day you will turn your stories of adventure into a real adventure. Or maybe, just maybe, you will turn your stories into a book, just like this one, which is an adventure of its very own. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to follow Westward Books, Facebook is the best place to do it, but we're also on X and obviously here on YouTube. If you're looking for the books themselves, not under Peyton's name, although Peyton did get on here, that's my nephew, but under my name, Addie Weston, on Amazon. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.